Japan's top generals discovered something terrifying about America, something that made invasion impossible. It wasn't the military they feared most. It wasn't even the vast oceans separating them. What they found would change warfare forever. Admiral Yamamoto knew the truth. He'd seen it firsthand. Every American home held a secret weapon that no army could defeat. The High Command's intelligence reports revealed a chilling statistic, and when they calculated the numbers, they realized Japan had already lost. The discovery. December 1941. Japan had just attacked Pearl Harbor. Their military leaders gathered in Tokyo. They were planning the next move. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto stood before the War Council with troubling news. He had spent years in America as a naval attaché. He knew things others didn't. The generals wanted to invade the American mainland. They believed their superior fighting spirit would win. Yamamoto shook his head slowly. "Gentlemen," he said, "we have made a terrible miscalculation." The room fell silent. He had discovered something during his time in America, something the intelligence reports barely mentioned. It wasn't about their factories or their army. It was something far more dangerous. The other commanders leaned forward. What could possibly stop the Imperial Japanese Army? Yamamoto pulled out a folder. Inside were photographs and statistics. What he was about to reveal would shock them all. The American secret. Yamamoto began explaining what he'd witnessed in America. He talked about traveling through small towns, through big cities, and rural areas. Everywhere he went, he noticed the same pattern repeating itself. American homes were different from Japanese homes. Very different. It wasn't about size or comfort. It was about what was inside them. He had walked past hardware stores in every town, gun shops on every corner, sporting goods stores filled with weapons. In Japan, only soldiers have rifles. Yamamoto explained. His fellow officers nodded. In America, everyone has rifles. The generals looked confused at first. So what if citizens owned hunting rifles? How would that stop a professional army? Yamamoto wasn't finished. He spread the photographs across the table. Pictures of ordinary American families. Pictures of their gun collections. The numbers he shared next made the room go cold. The impossible numbers. Yamamoto revealed the statistics his intelligence team had gathered. America had roughly 130 million people. Japan estimated at least 100 million firearms in civilian hands. That meant nearly one gun for every single person in America. Men, women, even teenagers knew how to shoot. It was part of their culture, their way of life. Fathers taught sons. Mothers taught daughters. Hunting wasn't just a sport there. It was tradition. Every farmhouse is a potential fortress, Yamamoto said quietly. The generals shifted uncomfortably. Every town a battlefield. One commander spoke up. But they are not trained soldiers. They are civilians. Yamamoto smiled sadly. He explained that many Americans grew up shooting. They hunted deer, elk, and bears from childhood. Their accuracy was often better than trained troops. And there was something else, something that made the situation even worse. The terrain problem. Yamamoto unrolled maps of America across the table. The country was massive, bigger than anyone in that room truly understood. From coast to coast, it stretched nearly 3,000 miles. Mountains, deserts, forests, and plains. All of Japan's military would disappear into that landscape. Even if they landed successfully on the west coast, what then? They would need to march inland through the Rocky Mountains across endless plains. Every mile would be hostile territory. Picture this, Yamamoto continued. Armed civilians behind every tree and every farmhouse, every town. The supply nightmare. One general asked about supplies and reinforcements. Surely Japan's navy could support an invasion force. Yamamoto shook his head firmly. The supply lines would stretch across the entire Pacific Ocean. Thousands of miles of dangerous water. American submarines would attack constantly. Their ships would hunt Japanese convoys. Every bullet, every grain of rice would need to cross that ocean. Meanwhile, Americans would be fighting on home soil. Their factories were already the most productive in the world. They can make tanks faster than we can ship rice, Yamamoto stated. The room grew quieter, and they will only get stronger. American industrial capacity was terrifying. While Japan struggled to replace lost aircraft, America built hundreds monthly. Their automobile factories were converting to tank production. Shipyards were launching new vessels weekly. The longer any war lasted, the worse Japan's position would become. But Yamamoto saved his most chilling observation for last: the fighting spirit. Yamamoto had studied American history during his years there. He knew about their Revolutionary War, how farmers defeated the British Empire. Americans had a strange relationship with authority. They didn't bow to emperors or kings. They valued independence above almost everything else. This made them unpredictable as enemies. A professional army follows orders and retreats when commanded. But armed civilians defending their homes, they don't retreat. You cannot negotiate with a 100 million armed people, Yamamoto warned. His voice was steady, but grave. There is no surrender point. Japanese military doctrine relied on breaking enemy morale through decisive battles. Defeat their army, capture their capital, and the war ends. But America had no single breaking point. Capture Washington, D.C., the states would keep fighting. Defeat their army, millions of armed citizens would continue resisting. It would be endless, a war with no conclusion. And then Yamamoto revealed his final, most disturbing conclusion. The famous quote, "The generals demanded a final assessment from Yamamoto. Could Japan invade America successfully or not?" His answer would become legendary. Yamamoto looked at each commander slowly. These men had conquered China and Southeast Asia. They believed in Japanese superiority and their warrior spirit. But Yamamoto had seen the truth with his own eyes. He knew what awaited any invasion force on American shores. "I fear all we have done is awaken a sleeping giant." The room remained silent and filled him with terrible resolve. Those words would prove prophetic. Yamamoto understood what others didn't. The attack on Pearl Harbor hadn't crippled America. It had united them, made them angry, turned their massive industrial power towards one goal: total victory. Invading their homeland would be suicide. Not because of their military alone, but because of something deeper, something uniquely American. But what happened next would prove Yamamoto right in ways even he couldn't imagine. The aftermath. History proved Yamamoto's warnings were absolutely correct. Japan never attempted to invade the American mainland. They knew it would be impossible. The few times Japanese forces touched American soil ended badly. The Aleutian Islands campaign showed what happened. Even on remote, frozen islands with few civilians, Japan couldn't hold territory. American forces pushed them back. Meanwhile, America's armed population became even more mobilized. Citizens formed volunteer defense groups. They trained for potential invasions that never came. Yamamoto died in 1943, shot down over the Pacific. But his words lived on. His warning had been clear from the start. Behind every blade of grass, there would have been a rifle. Behind every window, a defender. The sheer number of armed Americans made invasion unthinkable. Combined with vast distances and industrial might, it created an impossible challenge. Japan's military leaders finally understood America couldn't be conquered by force. Not then, not ever. The admiral who knew America best had tried to warn them. And now, decades later, historians still reference his famous quote about the sleeping giant. The Japanese High Command's reaction to America's potential invasion was pure terror. Their response involved the desperate Ketsugo defense plan. Operation Downfall would have triggered Japan's total homeland defense strategy. Every citizen would fight. Every beach would run red. The Japanese military plans for Allied invasion meant national suicide. Facing this impossible dilemma, Japan chose surrender instead. Sometimes the wisest military decision is knowing when you've already lost.